I was in the 4th grade at an elementary school in Denver, Colorado, and we were all sitting in the school cafeteria waiting and watching TV because a historic event was about to happen. In 1986, President Ronald Reagan had decided that a civilian would actually go into outer space, and she would be a teacher, or they would be a teacher. And Christa McAuliffe was the teacher who was chosen. As we are sitting there watching the Space Shuttle Challenger launch on that historic day, 73 seconds into the launch, the Challenger exploded. Millions of people around the world watched it live. It is a day that changed the history of the world, believe it or not. Christa McAuliffe was a high school teacher who taught social studies in Concord, New Hampshire, and she was chosen out of a field of over 10,000 applicants. It was narrowed down to 10, and she was then, of course, chosen in a very special ceremony that was done in the White House by Vice President George W.H. Bush, and that was in July of 1985. In September of 1985, she started her intensive training at Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, only going home to her husband and her 2 small children for the holidays, in which she returned. Christa McAuliffe was born September 2nd, 1948, in Boston, Massachusetts. She graduated high school in 1966. She then moved on to Farmington State College, where she graduated in 1970 with a bachelor's in education and American history. That very same year, she married her husband, Scott, and they had their first child, a boy. She later returned to college and got her master's degree from Bowie State College in 1978. That very same year, her daughter Caroline was born, and they moved to Concord, New Hampshire, where she, like I said, started teaching high school. The Teacher in Space project was the first of its kind. It is actually now no longer around, but it was the first of its kind. And what it was that a teacher was going to go into space. They were going to teach Christa was going to teach 2 15-minute lessons from space. They were going to be filmed, and televised live for all of the children around the United States. In the press conference where she was announced as the winner of the competition, she made this statement, that when the shuttle goes, there may be 1 body, but there will be 10 souls that I am taking with me, as she had grown very close to the 9 other participants, applicants that were with her. She was excited to be going, but she was also, a little nervous, as I imagine anybody going into space would be. She did want to, liked the fact that she was going to be able to help children have a better understanding of space and the world around them. She did miss her family, but she also missed her students as well. It is said that on the night before the launch, she was actually seen in the break room, the staff break room at Cape Canaveral, writing college recommendations for her students that very night before she was set to go up. The Space Shuttle Challenger was originally scheduled to launch on January 22nd, but it was delayed 4 different times. The first time was just a routine delay. The second time was due to a dust storm. The third time was because of weather. And the fourth and final time was because of a technical delay. The Challenger was actually, like I said, scheduled to launch on January 28th, even though many of the flight engineers had said that because of the unusual cold weather that there might be problems or potential for danger. The Space Shuttle launched anyways. At 11:39 Eastern Standard Time, the Space Shuttle Challenger launched. Like I said, 73 seconds later, it exploded in midair. All 7 lives on board were lost. The ensuing investigation proved that yes, the unusually cold weather weakened one of the O-rings on the rocket booster, causing fuel to leak out and to cause the explosion. The reason that this was such a big deal to me, the reason it plays such a very important part in my life is because my mother, who was an electrical engineer, her company was tasked with designing one of the rocket boosters. So my mother was very worried, and thankfully they did find out that it wasn't a technical issue, that it wasn't a design issue, that it was just a weather issue. Christa McAuliffe, as a child, inspired me because I always wanted to go to space. It was always kind of my dream to be an astronaut. But as I did this research, as I learned a little bit more about her and her life, I am inspired as a wife and a mother and an American to understand what it means to sacrifice, to give of yourself, and to be willing to do what your country asks of her. On the day of her death, the journalist Bob Holler wrote this. It says, put her by a swimming pool with her family, a bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich, and a cold beer, and she needed little more out of life. Give her a compass, her childhood friends, and a forest, and she flourished. Call her a hero, and she shuddered. In the 200 days I have known her, Christa went from a high school classroom to a spacecraft bound for an infinite frontier in the sky. She asked to be nothing more than an ordinary person on an extraordinary mission. She took up with her, though, several items that were very close to her. She took